recognition. Thank you. So I hope everyone will hit that QR code in the corner because we have a couple positions open for 2024. And we would love to have some more volunteers join the board. It's a great experience, and I recommend that you at least take a look at the positions that are open and consider serving the chapter as we grow and see where this takes us next year. So thank you all. I'm going to turn it over to Soha. She has a few words from HODN. We're super excited to be partnering with them on this event.
Good afternoon. We have HODN, Houston Organizational Development Network. We are a much smaller group. We have gone through growth and kind of reduction and growth and reduction. We feel like HODN is a organization that people come and go. You're a member and you get engaged. Then when you're busy at work, sometimes they don't have as much activity. We all have a monthly meeting every month. We try to bring speakers, but we see in our industry a lot of times there's a lot of ebb and flow as far as people coming and going. Our board is a fairly small board. Ricardo is not here. He's at a client's office today, and so he was not able to make it. He's our board president, myself, and then we have Gulnaz in the back here, and Gulnaz helps in all the different aspects. And we have a new member that's just joined, and he's in the back. Mitch, if you could just raise your hand. And he's going to be on the board. He's just joined us. This is actually his first event that he's with us. So we're excited to have him join us. So we would love to collaborate with ICF today. It's been really exciting for us. We have started collaborations. We did an ATD collaboration last a few months ago, which went really well. And so we're trying to build again our membership as well, because like I said, a lot of people come and go with our group. So we're happy to be here.
Yay. Thanks, Soha.
One other quick transition and then we'll get to why you're here. Just again, wanted to take the opportunity to thank you all. This has been a passion project of mine for many years of wanting to kind of create an opportunity for internal coaches in order to have a platform and voice as we've all navigated our ICF journey. Some have been easier than others, but it's nice to see that we have a large community representation here in Houston. So excited to get going with our panel, and I'm going to turn it over back to Soha, our moderator. Please enjoy the food, the beverages, so that way we don't have to.
Okay, I've been told that this table spins, so we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. But anyway, can you hear me? Do I need to move the microphone, or is everything okay? It's good. First of all, I'm sure you all got the bios of our panel, our esteemed panel. So I'm not going to go through each one of their lengthy bios and their accomplishments, but I will have each one of them introduce themselves and then just tell their position at what organization they are. Hand it over to you, Mickie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mickie Deveau. I have several names, as you probably have noticed. I like to live in mystery, so you can never know exactly which name I'm going to answer to. I am a director of the Leadership Institute within MD Anderson Cancer Center.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Voyadzis. I lead the organization and leadership development at EDP Renewables. We are a renewables company with a parent company in Portugal, and I'm also a coach.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Janine Antonelli. I'm currently the Associate Director of Coaching at the Deveau Institute for New Leaders at Rice University and the Director of Education for Coach Rice, our coach training program, ICF affiliated or accredited. And I had the privilege of serving with Sandra years ago as ICF board members just after Cecilia and from 2017 and through the pandemic. So it was quite a journey. I really encourage you to plug in if that interests you. Meet great people.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is James. As you see on the board, I am in the field of real estate, which means that my headshot is about 15 years out of date. But in that space, I am plugged in on multiple levels of different organizations, primarily from the Keller Williams International arm, where I help oversee their internal coaching division, also as a leadership and burnout coach for actual real estate professionals themselves. And recently, my wife and I are minority investors in a failing real estate franchise here in Houston, and we are repositioning it as an organization that is a coaching organization that provides real estate brokerage services. So fun projects, and I'm just honored to be up here with everyone else and share whatever we can to help.
Hi everyone, I'm Matt Dodson, and I am the manager of enterprise coaching at Chevron, based here in Houston.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. And we're just thrilled to have the board, the panelists here. Look forward to a good 45 minutes of some good information and tips and advice from the group here. So I'm going to try to keep it at about 45 minutes. So be cognizant of the time. And so, yeah, so basically I want to just start off by, before I delve into the questions, want to talk a little bit about and just an overview on how we see coaching and OD have synergies in the workplace. And so that's why Robin and Monique and I were talking a few months ago and actually earlier in the year. And we originally had scheduled this for sometime in May, and then things happened. We wanted to kind of push it back towards the end of the year. But, you know, just talking about the synergies between how coaching plays in the OD world and in the culture of an organization and what it does, and how OD is so dependent on the coaching as well. So I think that going forward, we'll have some questions to unearth the synergies, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to start with Mickie, and I want to, Mickie's background is in at MD Anderson. And so I wanted Mickie to tell us a little bit about how she sees OD and the coaching world in her realm and in her job and in her position.
Sure. So within MD Anderson at the Leadership Institute, they are so intertwined that it's really difficult for us to really separate them out. So I'll give you an example. We have individuals who are considered leadership practitioners. That's their job title. And if you look deeper into their job titles, coaching is maybe 30% of their job. We have some people that it might be 40% at most. So you're like, what do they do for the other 60 to 70%? It's on these projects that we would consider more OD in nature. So it might be specialty projects where they're working on an entire institution-wide survey, or it might be working with specific teams on retreats, or team coaching, where we consider that different than the individual one-on-one coaching. We have learned with this and having this different mixture, it helps people from burning out on coaching. Because if you're doing coaching every single day, you can get burnt out on it. You need some variety in terms of what you're doing for your everyday job. And this, the way we have it structured at MD Anderson, forces us to have that variety.
Sounds great. Sounds great. And the other thing is, I mean, when you say that in the coaching world, that's the way it gives them some variety. Well, in the OD world, without coaching, the culture of the organization is not going to be somewhere where you would want to live, stay and work. So, you know, it's important in both aspects of the way. Sandra, can you see and tell us about the biggest challenges facing the organizational health that you see today? And what are the keys in addressing these successfully?
So that's a big topic, and I'm going to focus on the sort of internal factors that affect organizational health. And I think the first one is actually, the first challenge is really measuring the health of the organization, right? How do you actually know how it's doing, how people are feeling? And surveys can go so far. We do one every year. But really, you need to have that foundation of trust so that people can actually really say how they're feeling. So I think the first challenge is understanding how do you measure the health of the organization, and you need that foundation of trust. Then the second one is obviously remote and hybrid work. We're still struggling with that. We keep flip-flopping internally even, you know, we do hybrid, so 3 days a week in the office, 2 days from home. But again, that's not standardized across the organization. So we're sensing that tension now. So I think, you know, the key to success there is having policies in place that we stick to. And then something that we're going to start addressing a little bit late to the game, but it's having best practices around teamwork, collaboration, managing performance to address the disparities with hybrid working. So that's a second challenge. A third one is leadership and culture. So there's a lot riding on the leaders. They have to create that environment. They have to lead, and very often they're thrown in to leadership roles without the right training or upskilling. So it's about developing programs that really tend to them and what are the pain points that they're facing every day. A really big one too is well-being. So well-being is more and more seen as critical to organizational health, to organizational success and results. And so developing a holistic well-being program that's not just focused on wellness or physical and mental health, but also professional, social, emotional health. And actually, so what we're doing is it's actually led by talent development. So it's moving away from benefits to talent development. And actually, we had General Tom Colditz, who a lot of people here know. He's left a legacy at the Door Institute, and he came in and spoke to us about well-being and the intersection of well-being and results and performance. And so that was, so those are some of the key ones facing organizations.
Well, and it's interesting because one of the things that I'm sure you all have heard about is the state interviews, and the whole concept of the state interviews and not just exit interviews. It's like a periodic, well check, like let's sit down and have a cup of coffee and find out how are things going. And so prior to people just wanting to, if there's some issues or tension and all, then they can voice those in an open environment rather than wait till they're so upset that they leave. So that's a big challenge, I believe, in that organizational health.
Yes.
Can I add something on just on that? I'm sure you all know the concept of psychological safety, but there's two pieces that Tim Clark talks about in his 4 stages. I think we really struggle with, and this is this idea that people have the ability to learn and grow. They don't always have to have all the answers. And we're 140 years old, and so everybody has to have all of the answers for everything all the time. And there's a real challenge that if I don't, then am I going to look stupid? And then the second one is this idea of, can I actually push back on the way you've always done things? Right? Can I challenge the status quo or whatever happens? So we really struggle in that area. But I would actually just kind of to tie this into kind of coaching. A coaching conversation is the first place you'll actually experience the ability to actually to not know and to be able to challenge some deeply held beliefs. So I think it's really important to get to organizational health that we say, hey, look, we're going to actually sort of talk a lot about psychological safety. And where you'll experience it is in a coaching conversation. And then you can actually have it sort of at a group level. And maybe it's just in pockets, because for years you haven't. You've spoken up and been shot down, or you said something, and the long-term memory in the organization will continue, right? And they'll just go, oh yeah, you said something stupid in 2008. And you'll never forget that. So I really find that to be a real big issue with organizational health.
No, thank you. And also the whole concept of being able to speak up, as you said, and creativity then comes in that environment. If it's safe to say something, and it's safe to, raise an issue that might have been shot down 12 years ago, then maybe creativity is how the new ideas come up. So no, thank you. Let's go to Janine. How is coaching currently used within your organization and for success?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's interesting, 140 years, we've been 6, coming up on 8, and it was showing up 6 years in with a change of directorship, right? So this is the way we've done it, or the person before has done it, and now we have a new director and they have a new way, and there's always some resistance anytime there's some shifting. So our industry at the Door Institute for new leaders is primarily higher ed. Our mission is to elevate the capacity of Rice students to lead, and the quality and impact of leader development across higher ed. So sort of a two-pronged mission. We have traditionally been very student focused in our programming. It is all through a leadership lens, so and founded in coaching. So every enrolled RISE student has access to at least one round of one-on-one coaching with a professional certified leadership coach. I see many of us here, many RISE folks here. And we have that in two formats, one-on-one and group coaching. Since we do measure everything and we've demonstrated tremendous impact of this approach, the provost reached out a couple years ago and said, hey, we'd love to have this for our faculty and our staff. So we've evolved a bit into that. We've had a couple of pilot rounds. We're currently coaching department chairs. We're in our third round of department chairs, anywhere from 8 to 11 folks. And this time we have 9 new department chairs, new as in just became department chairs. And then we have one department of staff who's working with us. And again, just one-on-one coaching. The challenge in that is there are other departments that oversee each of these client sets, if you will. Office of Faculty Development for the faculty, and then the department itself and HR over staff. So one of the challenges I see in offering up the services that we have is and a welcome opportunity is laying those foundations and those relationships, building those relationships and collaborative effort. This has really come to bear recently at Rice. The Door Institute has partnered with Carnegie Foundation and ACE to develop a new Carnegie elective classification. If you're familiar kind of with the university system, universities can be classified as an R1 or an R2, a research university. They also have elective classifications. So there's a new classification. The deadline is December 1st for any university that wants to achieve this first round. And it's for leadership for public purpose. So what it's introduced at Rice, we are both the ambassadors of it and the administrators of it, and we're also applying for it because it's the first round. So we've had to be very careful about delineating those two groups of people. But what that's done is provided us the opportunity for a self-study of how we at the university level develop leaders. And coaching is a core piece of that. It's really shown that that's a piece that is an essential element. So our next challenge then is to elevate it to the provost and the president for them to prioritize this as an approach that can then help facilitate coaching throughout the organization. But it's a great way to kind of connect the two, organizational development in all of its facets, and then coaching, the power of coaching.
Thank you. Matt, I wanted to ask you a little bit about if you can tell us what your company does in terms of professional development and what they offer. And so in terms of engagement and retention of your employees, because that's a big deal right now that everybody's, as we know, I mean, retention and engagement is a big deal.
Yeah.
So what do you all have in terms of that?
Well, we have like probably the standard programs that everybody has: future supervisor, manager. If you were to ask our CHRO, she'd probably say we don't have a retention problem.
Yeah, that's typical.
Based upon the numbers, and we have challenges in the pockets. So our development programs were shifted like right around COVID to be very aspirational. And so we moved away from very tactical supervisor development. Our program's called Your Leadership, Our Future. And it was very sort of mindset oriented. But we realized that supervisors still need basic blocking and tackling, like how to have a development conversation, or how to put someone on a performance improvement plan, or, so we missed that in sort of our zeal for aspirational development. It was all very missed, I think. It's just something we didn't see. So now we've kind of moved back to that. But one of the things that we've done at Chevron just in the last, since July of 2020, is we partnered with Better Up, a very big sort of proponent of that. And so we have coaching is available for managers and supervisors. And at one point in time, our CEO said, it's available to anybody. We're like, well, we're a small but mighty team, but I don't know if we can do that. But anyway, but we would make coaching available to anybody who wants it. And that's our commitment. So years ago, I used to do coaching for some of our capital projects leaders. And I spent most of my time tracking down people that didn't want to be coached. And so I'm like, I'm never doing that again. And I asked my boss at the time, I'm like, hey, I'm never going to offer this as a requirement. And she goes, okay, that's fine. So I don't. We don't. And we don't have any challenge right now of sort of filling the pipeline. So over the last 3 years, we've probably coached, we've had over 58,000 sessions of coaching around the very sort of transformational. That's our sort of bent. We've moved away from performance-based coaching, moved away from sort of behaviors. We're going below the waterline. And we will offer it to anybody who is interested. There are still people that say, oh, I've never heard about this. Or, wow, this is, but where we've gotten to is we will go into a room and ask, hey, who has received coaching? They could be future leaders or whatever else. And we don't care what they say. We just want to hear that the culture is, hey, coaching should be a regular part of your sort of, you want engagement, you want accountability, you want retention, you coach those people. They can be our own evangelists, and we don't have to worry about that. So.
Great. Let's go over to James, and why don't you tell us a little bit about what you see as the key competencies when developing and coaching leaders? What do you think are the key attributes?
Sure. And, when you're developing coaching leaders, that is increasingly crucial as you move up the employment hierarchy, right? But everybody can value coaching. And one of the big things that I find is a fundamental misunderstanding, right? There is a audience of people who they'll say things like, can I get some coaching on this? And what they're really saying is, can you tell me what to do?
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to do it anyways, but tell me what to do, right? And then on the flip side, there is people that have experienced coaching, right? They've been impacted at a transformational level. And so when coaching leaders to be better coaches, one of the things that I start with is the ICF core competencies. If you're not a part of ICF, you can Google it, right? ICF core competencies. And there is a phenomenal starting point. But of that, I really focus on 6 kind of key aspects. And the first is intention, right? What is the intention that you're approaching the conversation with? And from the ICF slant, it's ethical intention, right? Because if the intention is, you're not performing and I want you to do it this way, so let's coach. No, right? The second is buy into the coaching mindset itself, right? The belief that we can grow and change and we can look at things differently and that it's an open, safe space, right? To where we're not having that judgment of it's always been done this way, right? This is the place for the wild ideas and the open. The third is boundaries and agreements, right? I find that a lot of the, hey, can I get some coaching is on par with the, hey, you got a minute? And I coach my leaders to say, I absolutely have a minute for you. And it feels like what you're bringing me might be a 15-minute conversation. So can we get on the calendar a little bit later, a formal boundary, right? Trust is a big one. Do I trust that you're there for my growth and my development instead of just the organization? Because it can be a win-win, right? Presence, can you hold space? Can you sit there and not immediately jump into this is what you need to do? And then the 6th being adaptability. Can you think on your feet and not be so stuck in that fundamental worksheet conversation that the organization gave me? Can I recognize I can go 2 or 3 questions deeper? And the magic 3 words that I feel have impacted our coaching leaders the most, tell me more. As soon as you think you're going to tell something, tell me more.
Yeah, and I like that, the flexibility. I mean, of course, all of those are excellent points, those 6, but being flexible, because leaders today, you have to be adaptable and flexible. So absolutely. So Mickie, tell us a little bit about what are the things that Methodist is doing right now with, MD Anderson is doing right now in terms of creating this culture of belonging. Tell us a little bit about that.
So for those of you that don't know, MD Anderson is a cancer hospital, and we are 24,000 strong. So we're a very large organization. So fostering a sense of belonging can be difficult. But we are MD Anderson, and our mission is to eliminate cancer. To have such a mission brings everyone together. It is very hard to find someone who is not touched by cancer in some way, shape, or form. It's what draws people to MD Anderson. It's why they want to say yes to MD Anderson when we call with a job opportunity. So having that and that guiding mission is one of the strongest things that we do for a sense of belonging for our employees. We are also incredibly focused on the patient and what is best for the patient. Kind of can't get into MD Anderson unless you have that patient mindset. How else do we foster this sense of belonging? So it is about that foundation in our core values. So we have 5 different core values at MD Anderson. So it's caring, integrity, discovery, stewardship, and safety. Those are our kind of guideposts for anything that we do within the organization. It is our touch point. It is what we do to foster this sense of belonging, and it's all in service of the patient. The other things that we have done is how can our leaders foster a sense of belonging themselves? Very similar to what we heard our other panelists say, is how do we help them with those fundamentals of leadership? I love what Matt was saying about this aspirational leadership. We have that too. And we also found that they are really scared to have those difficult conversations, to tell someone they're not meeting performance standards. So we have backed down too. And we have core classes that are focused on how do you have those courageous conversations? How do you set expectations? And then beyond those core classes, we have additional programming that helps them think through, what do I need to do to get to that next level? So we have them as accelerate courses or discover programs. And one of the things that we learned, Matt, at MD Anderson is that coaching was such an effective component of our leadership development programs that we had seen, because we are huge geeks at MD Anderson. We measure everything, and we've partnered with Janine and the Deveau Institute in these measurements. And we have found that when you partner coaching or embed coaching in your leadership development programs, they are significantly more likely to see positive effects in their own individual performance and the performance of their direct reports, which is really what you're really looking for. So we have injected coaching into a lot of our leadership development programs, almost all of them. And the way that we are thinking about doing a sustainable coaching culture is we've partnered with Deveau again, and we run a Coach Rice program for our MD Anderson leaders. We have over 150 internally certified coaches. It is these coaches, these leaders, that are coaching leaders. It has become embedded in their performance evaluations. They are evaluated, every leader, every year on Coach and Develop. It's one of our competencies. And we have created a sustainable model where we have leaders coaching leaders. Another way that we're doing to form this kind of sense of belonging, it's to have those conversations that sometimes we miss. Very similar to what you had mentioned earlier, Soha, about stay interviews. We help them structure questions on how to have these one-on-one conversations with their direct reports. It all goes down to that coach and develop competency. And that's how we help our leaders foster a sense of belonging with their direct reports. And it trickles up and it trickles down. Did I answer your question?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. I mean, does everybody feel like that was answered? I think so, very thorough. Let's switch gears and talk a little bit. Janine, if you would tell us a little bit about how this all fits in with high performance teams. What type of coaching do you do to formulate high performance teams?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so exciting to hear all of this come together and hear Mickie. The key components are all those that have been shared, these competencies, aspirational leadership, and authenticity, and clear and compelling communication, and clear and compelling purpose, higher purpose. So I'm trained with Peter Hawkins as a systemic team coach, and that's what comes to mind in developing teams. It's really a fundamental start point of establishing a bigger worthy cause that's above and beyond. And the way that we do that is to identify what our stakeholders are telling us they need. What's the problem in the world that we are seeking to solve? And then asking who all needs to be at the table. What is the voice that we're not yet hearing that we need to? BP learned that the hard way, didn't they? That one of their stakeholders that went unnoticed, at least at first, was the fishermen in the East Coast and the Gulf Coast. So they so like that, keeping that in mind. Who are our stakeholders? What do they require of us? So it starts Peter Hawkins' model, which I appreciate having models and mnemonics, right? There's 5 C's. So it starts with that commissioning, asking what the stakeholder needs. But just knowing what the stakeholder needs isn't enough. Moving from the outside in then to your team and clarifying a great team has a clear, their own clear sense of collective endeavor. So given that this is what our stakeholders need, what do we need to do? We know the why. Now, what do we need to do? And what can we do collectively that we can't accomplish in parallel? So the second step would be commissioning to clarifying roles, your KPIs or OKRs. We use OKRs, objectives and key results at the Door Institute. So identifying who needs to be on the team and what we need to do on the team and how we're going to do that as a team. I've heard team coaching mentioned here. It's very different than group coaching. In team coaching, the team is the client. So it's the system that you're coaching, not necessarily an individual. And if you do have an issue with an individual on the team, then the first question we ask in systemic team coaching is what about the system is enabling this to be an issue? Not what's wrong with that person, or we need to move that person somewhere else, or they need development. It's what about the team needs to be developed. So commissioning, clarifying, and then co-creating. Once you identify what the agenda is for the team, or as the coach help the team to do that, then it's co-creating the how are we going to do this. There's a lot of opportunity in the how to increase performance, to increase efficiencies. And this is where you can really tie your coaching to the ROI for the organization. If you can move six people having a weekly meeting, a 60-minute meeting, to 3 people having a 30-minute meeting, and have systems and structures in place for everybody to be informed in a way that they can make an effective decision, then you've just saved that company X number of dollars by doing that. So first commissioning, second clarifying, third is co-creating. And then once all of that infrastructure is in place and that clarity abounds throughout the team, the real gift and the real value is then in connecting. You set it up so every single member of the team can connect and communicate with all of the stakeholders, the customers, the community that you're operating in, the board, everybody, and that 13th fairy, as they say, that we haven't thought about, right? So commissioning, clarifying, co-creating, and connecting. And it's an iterative process. It's not linear. So you're going round and round in this. And at the core is a component I feel is necessary. And Mickie's mentioned that we measure everything, is core learning. How are we learning as a team and developing as an organization from our actions? So we're always measuring what's working. And if it's not working, we don't emotionally tie ourselves to it. We don't do that anymore, and we shift and adjust. And it's been true of programs that we've had. We've for example, with students, we had a Catalyst module that just wasn't having the impact that we predicted it would. So we no longer have that Catalyst module. We've shifted in response to what we learned from surveying and observing. So there's opportunity throughout that model to measure and get feedback. And so that's just one. There are many models out there, but I think those are key components of building a strong and high performance team.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sandra, I wanted to ask you a little bit about what you thought, what are the skills and the mindsets that leaders need to have to enable their teams to be successful?
So I'm biased, but coaching. Right? And actually, we do include the coaching mindset and coaching tools in a lot of our leadership development programs. So we really urge and teach our leaders to sit back, to listen more, to ask more questions, to get curious. We do that through our foundational leadership development program, Lead Now. We have group coaching where we teach them also the GROW model and teach them how to have those kind of conversations. So definitely the coaching mindset and the coaching tools. Also, obviously, just effective communication, which trickles down to everything. So making sure, again, they listen, they ask, going with the clearest kind, teaching leaders to lean into those difficult conversations, to be really clear about goals and expectations. Again, that's throughout all of our programs. Having a growth mindset, really important. So to your point, not necessarily leaders don't have to know everything. They can actually let go a little bit. They can point people in the right direction if they don't know. And teaching them to trust themselves, actually. It's a lot of also about confidence and trusting themselves. Asking for feedback. So this year we've started implementing really a culture of feedback where we have quarterly development conversations. Again, a lot of psychological safety, the foundation of trust that we worked on 2022, 2023, so that these conversations could take place. So that's with the growth mindset and really the continuous learning. And that as a leader, you have a learner's mind. You're still growing, you're still learning, your journey's not done. And then finally, really resilience at the individual level and at the team level. So how do you, as an individual, stay agile, take care of yourself? As a leader, you need to do that, oxygen mask before you take care of others. So we teach a lot of resilience at all levels, individual, team level, and organizational level. So there's a lot more team, I guess, consults happening, and really starting with, again, foundation of trust, connection, being open, psychological safety, so that then you can build on and get the results.
Thank you very much. So James, let's talk a little bit about how you feel this whole employee experience, especially in the last 5 to 10 years, this whole employee experience, about how that has gone from traditional coaching to the current coaching today. So there has been a shift.
Oh, yeah.
And so talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I really kind of feel like there are 3 to 4 big shifts that are in part of that conversation. And the top for me is the shifting of expectations from both employers and employees. If you think back to our parents and our grandparents' relationship with work, right? You were talking about that was all about utility. Can you do this task? And then, thanks to Henry Ford and the assembly line, right? Then it became about productivity. Can you do the task more efficiently than the person next to you? And then we start moving forward, right? We become more about engagement, right? Because we're moving from pushing buttons, pulling levers, digging. Now we're moving to more thought process, right? The thought economy. And so engagement is suddenly important, because when you have people that are engaged and happy and excited, you get a better work product, right? And now we're kind of moving to this experience economy, because now there's a shortage in most labor markets. And so it's not just, hey, can I engage you and make you happy and compensate you? Now it's also, I need you to enjoy what you're doing, right? I need that experience there. And so as that shift happened, what you noticed was the coaching conversations start to change as well. In the beginning, it's all about skill development, right? Then it goes into kind of that performance improvement. But now we're talking about the personal growth conversations, right? Those aspirational goals, well-being, work-life, right? The second big shift that I'm seeing is we have a lot more data than we've ever had, right? And one of my favorite talks is a conversation that Simon Sinek does, and he talks about leadership, right? Specifically his time embedded with the Navy SEALs. And what he talks about is, in that organization, they basically make a grid, and it's comparing trust and skill. And we all know that we want to have somebody that's high trust, high skill, right? And none of us want low trust, low skill. Easy. Well, the thing that he shares is that in the Navy SEALs, perhaps one of the most high efficiency organizations on the planet, they actually value someone of low skill and high trust more than high skill, low trust. And for me, the insight that I saw was we're coming from a work history that if you were the top performer, there was no data how you got there. It was, hey, you're the top performer. Congratulations, you get the big office. And what we were doing is we were promoting people of high skill and in many cases low trust, right? Who could step on the next man or woman on the way up. And now we have these data-driven insights that we can also not only look at performance on the sense of who put the point on the scoreboard, but we can see the performance metrics that contributed to that. We can see the satisfaction, the engagement inside the organization. And so now what I'm seeing is the ability to actually coach those high trust individuals to better skill performances. And then the third shift is, for me, the blurring of the work-life balance. Even before COVID, we all had our work attached at the hip, right? Our emails, our phone, we were 24 hours accessible. And then suddenly we go in the world of COVID, where now it is not only that, but I report to work at the kitchen table, or I report to work in the home office. And suddenly what we're starting to see is a lot of the coaching is, how do you get back that space for your life? How do you get back for that personal growth? And that's where the experience is most impactful in my experience, is that when you get people to let go of, I'm not expected to be an employee 24 hours of the day. I'm expected to be mom, spouse, right? Dog parent, whatever it is. And so for me, those big three things are the ones that I see the biggest shift. And I think there's a lot of room for us to still improve in there.
And I think to the point that we've all been talking about, I think that the generation that's coming up and into the workforce is really making us make the changes as well. I mean, they are definitely asking for different, they're not like our parents were. They would just work and be there for 40 years and be at the same organization for 40 years. I mean, it's a whole different ballgame with this new generation. They're going to go to where they feel valued and where they feel like it's part of an experience.
Well, and it's also really interesting to that kind of fourth component is that we're coming from a history of institutional knowledge, right? That 40-year employee that, hey, you want to know something? Go talk to Tommy down the corner. He knows everything. He knows where all the bodies are buried. Just go talk to Tommy. And in that place, if Tommy doesn't say that it's green lit, then it's not green lit. Now we're in a place where in our pocket, we have the most advanced piece of technology and access to any knowledge, right? We can get on LinkedIn and identify any of these people and say, hey, I'm trying to do what you do in my organization. Can I get feedback? And that access makes it so powerful.
Absolutely. So Mickie, let's talk a little bit about a change or a transformation that happened within your organization and how an experience that you had and how you managed that through coaching and how that worked and how that whole process went.
Sure. So there's been several over the last couple of years, the pandemic being one of the most recent ones. So with MD Anderson, and because our patients, part of their treatment is we basically eradicate their immune systems. So when you have a patient population that's so vulnerable, we can't have that many people on campus. We also had a shortage of PPE, so we could not give them masks. There was also, shortages of various different things that prevented us from having all 24,000 employees on campus during the pandemic. So I think it was around March of 2020, we sent the majority of our employees home to figure out how to work from home. The only ones that were on campus were the ones that had to be, the ones that were patient facing. And then we also mandated the COVID-19 vaccine, flu vaccines, you name it, we mandated it to help save our patients from any kind of complications, etc. That transformation of putting everyone at home, working remotely, was huge, huge. There are a number of our departments that are in that hybrid mode. I work from home almost exclusively. I might go into the office maybe once a month, if that. So helping our employees and our leaders handle that transition, we held webinars. We opened up what we called the Coach Finder. So the Coach Finder was a way for anyone within the institution to get access to any one of our internally certified coaches. All they had to do was search their profiles and make a connection. So in that transition, we try to provide as many resources available to help our employees deal with that. Now we're a couple of years in, and similar to what James was just mentioning about this idea of work life and how do you shut it down? Like, how do you build those boundaries? A lot of our coaching nowadays is focused on you need to turn off the computer. You need to close the door to your office if you're privileged enough to have an office, your own office. So it's about what are the boundaries that we're helping our employees set, and also helping our managers understand. Your employees are not accessible 24/7. You can't assume that they are. We even have a number of things that we put out there about what you can put on your email signature of, please know you are not, you do not need to respond to this email immediately. My workday may be different than yours. So it's these little things that we're doing culturally to help all of us manage this idea of work-life balance and wellness. And I think the other thing that we have been doing and really concentrating on, because that great resignation, we lost a lot of really great oncologists who decided that this was just too much. I wanted to do my own private practice. And in that, we have realized how important wellness is, especially for our, we call them faculty, for our physicians, our clinicians, because they're dealing with really sick patients. So the idea of wellness is so important to us that we are currently searching for a chief wellness officer. We are putting the resources behind what is needed to help our employees, to help our faculty, because it will ultimately help our patients. Coaching is so important to all of that, because you have to have those conversations. And how do we help our leaders have those conversations with their employees? Your one-on-ones can't simply be about like what you're doing on this one. How did you progress? You have to connect with people. You have to be intentional in that connection. So we're trying to provide various different tools to our leaders. When I say tools, it's like literally a list of questions that you should be asking during a one-on-one. We are that prescriptive at times. That's some of the things that we've been doing.
Yeah, and like you said, the chief wellness officer, I mean, that's huge. I mean, first of all, the industry that you're in, it's such a heavy, I mean, the people that are coming to work at MD Anderson every day, I mean, it's a heavy environment. So that's wonderful that they are looking to hire a chief wellness officer. I think it just goes in. And forwarding from that comment, I would ask Janine, I mean, what do you see, how is organizational success, as you are in your coaching environment, how does that drive, and how do leaders, what are the typical, I guess what I'm trying to say is how is the organizational success dependent on the leader?
Yeah, I think Mickie just illustrated it so beautifully, right?
Yeah.
That you need a person who is holding the why, who's holding the vision, who's creating the culture, who keeps that consistency, who has eyes on the horizon, all the horizons, and can navigate that and communicate it clearly and confidently and with competence. Hopefully they have some skills we can coach them through those, the ones that they don't. One of the foundational components of leadership that we uphold at the Door Institute is emotional intelligence. I know that's a big buzzword for a lot of people. We found all of our coaching on the EQI. So everyone who coaches with us first takes the EQI, the Emotional Quotient Intelligent 2.0 through MHS, and they get a debrief, a 90-minute debrief, so that they are aware of their, or that hopefully we're raising their awareness about their self awareness, self expression, their interpersonal relationships with respect to emotions, how they make decisions, their decision making and their problem solving, all in the context of emotion. And I think that's where it comes to the person at the top, if you will, or if you're a servant leader at the bottom, supporting everybody above you, however you like to tip and turn that org chart, to all the effects that Mickie just shared, right? Without that single person, I think that it muddies the water. So it's key that you have an emotionally intelligent leader, a designated leader, and someone who can build the culture, communicate the culture. Because just imagine if you're making those changes as a sub team, but it isn't supported from the top. At any moment, talking about psychological safety, that can be upended. If you're only doing something for now, you're really pulling back from the sustainability and the scalability of your organization. So those are just some key components that I'm hearing that are so important. I imagine like a Super Bowl team that goes to the Super Bowl without a head coach. It's like, or has a head coach but not the quarterback. So you actually also need leaders, key leaders, functional leaders at each of those levels too. And maybe you have a great head coach and a quarterback, but the owner, isn't as engaged, right? So the last piece I think that's important for somebody to have a leader, and why it starts from leadership, is they have to be able to remove barriers, just as you said. They have to be able to first understand and see them and visualize the barriers, and then be able to have the authority and the influence and the presence to move barriers, in a way that opens the path up for everybody, from the next top senior executive to all the people who are doing the tough work on the front lines.
Great. I think we have time for maybe one more question, and I wanted to ask Matt about this. Across the when you have various departments working together, and you have teams in all the different departments, talk a little bit about how across cross collaboration and teamwork. Tell us a little bit about that, and how coaching applies, and how enabling the team members to work better together.
So we don't do this well. I will just say that. How about that?
Well, and transparency and trust.
I would actually, so we typically, some organizations will have like a chartering process, whatever the chartering happens to be. It's not as used as much, but for some of our like major capital projects, we do a good amount of chartering and sort of establishing some team norms, whatever that is.
Sure.
Now, a coach will typically function in that role, where they are actually interacting and actually working with the team. So they'll do one-on-one coaching as well as the team sort of live coaching in some of those sort of all-day meetings, multiple days, or whatever it happens to be. And then, of course, as a team sort of grows and matures in that place, we also have them sort of assess where they are at in terms of, where are you guys at for how you actually are growing and maturing, or maybe you're not. But typically, some of our coaches, whether they're org development consultants or just coaches, will actually come in when things have gone wrong. Then someone will say, hey, we need something. And I'll tell you, this is why I said sometimes we don't do this right, or we don't do this well. They will usually find some assessment that's going on in the organization and go, oh, you know what we need? We need that assessment because that's what's missing from our team, right? And then it's sort of like, hey, I'll have like a stakeholder engagement and a chaser of some type of personality, right? And so that's a problem, right? It's not actually kind of looking at some of the fundamentals of what's going on in the team. So that's actually the process of what we're doing now. We have an org development group that's actually just for looking at some of our team effectiveness. And, it's with a decentralized organization, it's more challenging. And a lot of times we'll bring an external consultant in because sometimes there's a lot of consequence history with whomever is in the room. And so anyway, that was, Yeah, I think that's probably an incomplete way of saying, hey, we don't do this well. I know we need to.
Well, and we appreciate your honesty, and that's part of this conversation. And with that, I just wanted to kind of just see if there was any other questions in the room. Wanted to give you all an opportunity.
I kind of want to talk a little bit about habits.
Yeah.
So, and what I mean by that is like, I could imagine some very well-intended people who seek out coaching because they know that it's important, but they might operate in a culture that kind of brings in the worst versions of themselves or the things that they're actually trying to improve upon. I just want to see if you have any thoughts. I mean, I don't mean to put anybody on the spot, but like, how do you not only build new, preferred habits and combat some of the bad habits that the broader culture might sometimes bring out of people? Softball.
I'm happy to take it. So in the real estate space, habit is really powerful because you have a lot of independent contractors who their worst habits weren't being a highly productive real estate agent. It was sitting at home eating their Wheaties, watching SpongeBob or something. And what we know, right, in research is 66 days to make a habit, right? Like that's the prevailing research in that space. And one of the big conversations that I have with a lot of people, I would honestly say about 99% of the people that I'm coaching or developing, is we talk a lot about the trail horse example. And if you're not familiar, if you've ever ridden a horse, right, 1,000-pound animal, you have the illusion of control, right? And if most people, their experience with a trail horse is, hey, I went to a retreat or something and they had horses and we rode around the real pretty scenery. The horse got its apple, got petted, and it's done for the day. Well, that horse is so trained to go around that trail that a novice rider, I could put my daughter up there and her crazy teenage, preteen hormones, and the horse is just going to go. Now, with an experienced rider, they can grab those reins and the horse will fall into command and will go check out this new ravine or whatever, right? But the instant that experienced rider lets go of the reins, or the instant that horse is spooked, where does that horse go? Right back to the barn, right? That's where safe is. And so one of the conversations we have is that if you have a North Star, you have a direction that you want to go, and you've identified the skills, the habits, the activities that are going to get you there. Number one, it's going to take 66 days before that horse is broken in that that's the new norm. And so as soon as you let go of the reins or you get spooked, right, you get triggered in any environment, the horse is going to go back to habit. And so much of who we are habits, right? It's all about efficiency and burning the less calories. It's a survival mechanism. And so what we really start with is that self-assessment and that self-awareness. One of my favorite activities that we did as part of one of my coaching certifications with IPEC is they require you to carry around a trigger journal for a period of time where when you notice you are triggered, you write it down. And the thing is, I can't change the environment. I can only change me. And so if something you're saying or doing or the environment's doing triggers me and gets me off track and makes me let go of the reins, whose fault is that? Well, I'm the one with the reins in my hand. And so it's that ownership and that conversational piece. And what we find is that when you put yourself together, then you impact your family and your team. And when your family and team impacts, then you impact your organization and your community, right? All the way up. And that's how we change the world. At least that's how I'd approach it.
Well, great questions. And I know probably a lot more are out there, but I'm so sorry we're at 1 o'clock, and I know that we are trying to finish on time so that you all can get back to work on a Friday afternoon. So anyway, thank